Welcome back. I have the pleasure of introducing this last but certainly not least session featuring my friend and my colleague, Brian Chang, Principal Technologist at VMware. And he has brought three of his friends from OneMagnify to discuss some strategies for building gender diversity in organizations to deliver award-winning products. So let's welcome Carrie Schaefer, Senior IT Director at OneMagnify, Nicole Wierzblowski, Hosting Engagement Manager at OneMagnify, and Rajma Lakshmi Padmanabhan, IT Director at OneMagnify. Really looking forward to this conversation. Take it away.
Thanks, Estelle. Hi, everyone. So excited for us to be here at Spring One. It's been an awesome conference thus far. We've been so excited to talk to y'all about this subject because, I mean, when you think about it, we're talking about building gender diversity within an organization, which is really important on its own, right? To deliver award-winning products. Now, how do those two combine and connect? Well, you're going to speak to some experts in this field, and I'm super privileged and honored just to be amongst them. So with that, I am going to share my slides and my screen with y'all. We're going to get right into it now. I hope that you can see slide number one, which is the cover slide. There's a picture of our prominent speakers. And by the way, they're all Tanzu Vanguards, which I am the head of, and I'll be introducing you to the Vanguard community in a sec. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to my good friend Carrie to take it away.
Okay. So we want to talk about gender diversity and how we did that at OneMagnify, and how we actually were able to sustain growth of diversity. And so Raji and Nicole and I are all part of the IT department at OneMagnify, and we have a broader group called Amplify at OneMagnify, and it's an organization created by, it's an advocacy group that was created by and led by women. And so we went to a conference, and at the conference we realized that while the Amplify group was great, women in IT we are a little different, right? There's a lot of differences between us, and we have a lot of different goals. And we went to that conference and we learned all of this information about women in IT, like, you know, the number of women in IT have been decreasing year over year. And we realized like we need to do something to actually help the women in IT at OneMagnify. So we couldn't send everybody to a leadership conference. So we said, let's actually create our own leadership and technical conference for women in IT at OneMagnify. And really part of that too was also the leadership, right? And when you look at the number of women in IT, you start looking at the number of women in IT leadership, that number drops. So we actually launched the IT Circle basically right before COVID in 2019, in December 2019. So kicked it off, and we've done pretty well with it, and we have some impressive things that we want to share with everybody. Next slide, Brian. So we launched the IT Circle. We identified an opportunity. We just went over the statistics, and women, when we don't see ourselves in leadership positions, we feel like it's not accomplishable. A lot of women do, and that's probably very true for other underrepresented minorities as well. And so we realized, like, when we started actually like looking at gender diversity, we realized like we are higher than the national average. We have almost 40% of the women of our IT staff being women. And so we thought, let's actually like listen to the women that are in IT, present them a forum where we can present things like help them get certifications and preparations, do webinars, and hands-on training workshops. But we're going to ask them what they want to learn about. And we're going to also insert some things that we think are important for them to learn. And we're going to engage them and try to get them to tell us what they want to learn, and then also engage them and try to get them to come into these seminars.
So Carrie, I got to ask, what did y'all learn from that? I mean, what was some of the key takeaways?
So the first thing we learned that was a key takeaway was that the women in IT were very excited about getting these classes and these speakers and these presentations, even workshops from other women in the organization. I think it created a forum for them that they could feel like they could learn things and they could talk to other women. So it's not just when they're within their project team, it's also across the organization. They could talk to women in other departments in IT. And then one of the really impressive things that we learned is that we have a lot of women who are in other departments that may want to go into IT. And so we found that, because we actually opened up our presentations in the IT circle, men can join too. And there were actually a lot of men who came and they wanted to get the same learnings and do the same sessions as the women. But women from other departments that were thinking about like potentially IT careers, they also started to attend. And what we found is that engagement and that ability for women to go into those sessions and learn from other people in IT, it made them very excited. They were always asking, when's the next session? When's the next session?
Cool. What else happened?
Well, I would say we had a lot of fun, because we always do. We try. I mean, there's some subjects that you can only have so much fun with, but most of the time we try to have fun. And really what we found is that even during COVID, when when a lot of women left the workforce, because OneMagnify is a flexible company, we didn't lose women out of the workforce, because they felt like they had a place where they could go and be heard. And we've actually seen that women now at OneMagnify, they feel like there's a career path for them.
Oh, cool. So wait, you actually did this during COVID. Did I hear that right?
Yep, we did it.
So let me ask, did it help or hurt that everyone was like locked in their homes and doing Zoom conferences?
So I think it actually helped, to be honest. So our first session that we did in office was great, and we had good turnout. We were very happy with it. But our second session, which was in the same, so our first session was a session called Build Your Brand. And our first session was like, we had a good number of people. The room was kind of full, and Raji and Nicole and I were like, okay, great, yay, our idea is successful. People want to do this. But what we found was that when we did the second session, the second session was in the heart of when COVID first started. Everybody had been home for 2 weeks. People were, kids were out of school, and people were like dying to see each other. You went from like having all this interaction with humans to like having no interaction with humans. And we found that our second session had significantly more people. I won't say twice as many, because I don't think that's right, but I would say probably 50 to 70% more people than the first session, because people were craving that interaction. They had heard it was fun from their friends for the first session, and they were like, hey, we're going to go do something and talk to people, see faces, talk to people. And then we're also going to have fun doing it. And I think COVID actually helped us, because, people, I think part of it is people have more time in their day, right? You don't have the drive in, the drive home. And then secondly, like, people are craving, you can only lock people in their houses so long without talking to each other.
It's true. That's interesting. So in terms of other key learnings and takeaways, Nicole and Raji, anything that you guys learned from that experience?
From having the COVID situation, just kind of the same thing Carrie was saying. We just saw a lot more engagement. We were worried about how our events would do after COVID, just because a lot of our stuff is, really nice to be in person, have those interactions face to face, and really get to know people. So we were worried about how that would impact, and if that would really impact not only turnout, but how the whole goal of this program is to get women to kind of reach out, be more confident, and really go into IT and take that leap. And we were worried that that would give them an opportunity to kind of sink back into the quiet position and not really take a stab at, meeting new people, hearing different perspectives, and really getting out there. So it ended up being the opposite, which we are pleased to see and hear. So that was kind of the main thing I took away from it.
Right, I agree with what Nicole and Kerry said. And we also were able to conduct some technical workshops, which I'm sure Nicole is going to cover a little bit later, and we were able to do it remotely. So it actually helped.
Cool. Awesome. I have more questions, but let's keep going, because I'm sure you guys will address them. Next slide. What is the IT circle? So we
So
kind of
we,
talked about that, right?
yeah, we did. And our real goal was we wanted to empower and enable the women IT. We wanted to help them build their leadership capabilities and their technical capabilities and experience. And we wanted to have better knowledge sharing across the functional technical groups. And
Yeah.
and that was part of it. And then we also wanted to provide them an ability to see the career path. And so I actually realized we don't have a slide about the award-winning part of this, right? So we talked about how we did it to build award-winning products, and actually Raji's team was, I think she was the primary driver. So during COVID, we actually had to launch these programs for our customers. We had to do it very quickly, and we used Tanzu platform to do that. And you know, a good portion of that team that did that were women, because obviously, you know, they're a big makeup of our team, and that team, it was a high number, right? So through doing this, we've started seeing that women are taking leadership roles, and even if you're not thinking about like moving up in a position chain, they're feeling more confident. And so we were able to deliver for our customer very quickly. And our company last year in 2020, we won the CIO 100 award based on some of the work that was being done. And so
Congrats.
I know, yeah. And so, I mean, you know, gender diversity is very important. And then building the confidence of the women in the organization also had a really good impact for OneMagnify.
Okay, great. Now, let me ask, I mean, from hosting these IT Circle Talks, what did you find was holding women back from either entering a career in IT or pursuing leadership positions?
I think the first thing is, I'll tell you a story about my niece, and those of you guys heard me talk before have heard it. So this is from my perspective because it was kind of crazy. So
Okay.
My niece, when she was a teenager, came to live with me, and she was, you know, interning at our company, and she was going to school. And then I'm in IT. So she's interning at the company, riding into work, in and out of work with me every day. And she's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you want to get a degree in? What do you want to do? She's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I don't really know what that means. So, you know, I know what that means, but like, what is that in a degree, right? So anyways, I'm very old fashioned, I guess, in that way, but, you know, trying to encourage her. And so I said, you know, you're interning in the IT department. Have you thought about a career in IT? And she laid in the truck next to me and like flopped on her side. I can kind of do it now. And like made this horrific groan, like, oh, you old person, that's awful and terrorizing me. And long story short, so she kept at that, and she kept doing that, and ultimately she decided, because she interned with us for several years, and she came back and she decided this is like a great place, like this is a great company to work for. And then our CIO Andy Fry said, do you want to become, you know, a Linux administrator? We need one. We could put you through training, whatever. And so ultimately she went into Linux administration, and she's got a very different perspective. And I think what's interesting is, I think the way we stereotype jobs is that it's not going to be fun and interesting. You know what she says to me is, she said the best part about her job, the favorite thing about her job, is she helps people all day, every day.
Nice.
I don't think we're selling IT jobs saying you're going to help people and get to work with people and get to talk to people. Like, that's not how we're doing it. So I think that's a big portion of what's holding women back from getting in. And then I think there's some, you know, women have always felt like, you know, growing up in a traditional gender environment, we've always felt like we've had to be like meek and demure. We're not going to stand up. We're not going to step out. We're not going to talk positively about ourselves. So we had to build that confidence as well.
Love it. Nicole?
That actually brings us kind of right into the next slide, where I can kind of address that. One of the biggest things that we looked at, what would appeal to women, what would help them out. One of the biggest items that we heard from all different women in IT and out of IT was that they just don't know how to speak positively about themselves. We wanted to make women, I can't remember the statistic exactly, but women need to feel overqualified to apply for a job. Whereas men, if they have about 40% of, you know, the items that are on that checklist for that job, they go ahead and go for it. So that was a big item. And I know I can be like that. That's something that once I read that, I was like, hey, that's me too. Like, I feel that way. So one of the major focus for our first a whole section workshop was putting together a way to help build that confidence, help women kind of learn how to sell themselves, feel confident, and appreciate what you do have to offer and take that jump and that plunge. So we our first workshop was 3 parts, and it was about building a brand. So the first session was all about defining your superpower. So we kind
Cool.
of, yeah.
I
Oh,
said,
I
that's
thought
cool.
yes. This workshop was all about kind of identifying your personal attributes. We wanted to make it fun. We wanted to inspire confidence for the women participating, and there was men too that came. So as you can see on this slide, there's that little dog there with all those
Yeah.
different words. We did this in a way that would help engage people and also kind of leave you feeling good by assigning and letting people pick different people to do that word map for. So I did Carrie's there, and I went through and listed everything that I think is awesome about Carrie and put together in something that she's passionate about, which is her dogs. So that was a way for us to get other people to describe amazing things about you. And then those women were looking, and men were looking at those going, wow, you think that about me? And it kind of opened that dialogue for further exploration to kind of dive into, hey, I am good at that. Hey, I do that. You're right. And it was just an overall fun, engaging way to kind of take that first step towards building confidence and allowing women to really identify, like, you got this, you can move forward. This second session was taking that a step further, and it was all about doing an asset inventory. So it did, the first part was kind of like, let's list some certifications, list some skills, but then it was also taking in passions, values, interests, and beliefs, and kind of what makes you you. And the way we kind of got everyone to have a fun time with this one was, you can see that little comic with the little bubbles at the top there.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of another fun way for us to kind of build a visual, something that they can refer back to, kind of build on. Same with the word map. It was just items that they could take with them later, kind of look at it, reflect, and really start to think about what kind of brand, how do they want to position themselves when you're trying to go for new jobs, new careers. The third part was all about using your brand. How do we take what we're doing here with this superpower, all these awesome things about ourselves, our skills, certifications? How do we develop a brand? How do we have a branding statement that kind of positions us, that might sell us in a way to help get that position over somebody else? How do we promote ourselves? So we took those 2 sessions, kind of merged them into the last one, and kind of helped and showed different examples of how you can use your branding to update your resume, how you can put that on social platforms, and how you can use that to influence others with conversations. So those were the whole goal, was to really help build that confidence in women that we were kind of seeing women shy away from jobs and positions, especially in IT, where it's mostly dominated by males. So that was kind of our first step to open up the whole IT circle and get everyone in a great mood and feeling good and positive about themselves. So that's kind of what we focused on for our part 1 of our workshops.
I love that, because I mean, when you say you found that some women don't know how to speak positively about themselves, that's huge. That is like a massive weight that like is holding them down. So the idea of like putting together a word map with positive words and telling them they have superpowers, I mean, what a positive and encouraging thing to do. Now, I got to ask Nicole, and Roger, I'm going to get to you next, but Nicole, like, what do you tell them, or even tell yourself, when you don't feel like being positive today, or you don't feel like you have a superpower today? What do you do to overcome that?
So a big part of that word map was not only identifying one word that makes up you, but showing all the different words that make up you and what others think of you. So if one day you're not feeling social, you don't want to be a little butterfly talking to everybody, you're just not in that outgoing mood, you're in a bad one, there are other characteristics that you can lean on that day that you can really pull in. So if I don't feel like talking a bunch, all right, I'm going to put my head down and get to it and, really pull from my other assets to push forward, always moving forward.
Gotcha. I like that. I like that. All right, I'm going to shift to the next slide now. Can you talk to this, please?
Yeah, of course. So this one is this breaks up two different things that we do for the first workshops. They're all about like personal branding and personal growth. Other things that we do and promote are centered around sharing new technology, kind of taking input. As Carrie mentioned in the beginning, we listen to requests that come in from everybody in IT and the women and what they want to see. A large part of the second workshop was there was a buzzword, Kubernetes, all over our office. There was so much talk about it. And we just were like, we need to do a session on this. And then we thought, how do we break it up? Because we want to engage everyone no matter where they're at on their technical journey. So we broke it up again into two sessions. The first one was 101, and we had a great turnout. There was even non-IT people there. And we found a way to kind of introduce the topic, give an overview that was pretty general and easy to understand. And then our way to engage everyone was using a video that was really fun. It brought a lot of smiles to everyone's face because it was a bit silly, but it took a technical topic and kind of broke it down that was easy to understand and easy to follow for everyone that was watching. And then as a way to kind of tie that talk in the beginning and this video, we did a quiz that allowed people to kind of laugh and joke about the questions we pulled from the video, and then also, do a little bit of Q&A on some of the topics that we might have covered. It was a great first session. We really loved the turnout. And then the second one was kind of going, okay, obviously there's a group of people that want that deeper dive. They want to see more of a hands-on experience. So we took it a step farther and set up a demo. We allowed them to kind of get within the tool and kind of explore, kind of learn. It was more of a hands-on workshop. And then it was nice that you could have the question and answer capabilities while they're, getting that hands-on experience. So it was great for the new technology, and we plan on doing more just like that because that got awesome feedback. And then the second part that we've been focusing on is kind of bringing to light some of the career paths that might not be heavily explored, or maybe someone that is first starting out in IT doesn't think of. So with that, we went into cybersecurity. We kind of went over some statistics of the current market. We kind of talked about potential for growth in that position at our company. And then we kind of talked about potential for career growth overall as you kind of explore the market, explore that field. And then to supplement that, we kind of went over some training programs because some women might be like, oh, cool, that looks like an awesome career. How do I get started? How do I get moving on that? So we kind of went into some different training programs that our company is involved with, which is Apprenti and Experience IT. We just allowed them we gave a brief overview about them. We kind of allowed them to kind of look it up, gave them some information so that if they wanted to kind of do a deeper dive, they could and use those training programs. The third one, which I'll kind of go into the next slide and I'll let Raji get a little deeper into that, was the WAMSA, which is focused on cybersecurity. So that was a great program that we kind of introduced during that career spotlight discussion that kind of was like, it connected the dots for people that wanted to dive right in and we're like, yep, sign me up, where do I go? But it also allowed people to kind of go like, well, I'm not sure, I guess I'll look in that. And it just kind of gave a well-rounded opportunity for people that might be interested, not sure, or people ready to dive in.
Got it. Fascinating. Thanks for sharing that, Nicole. And I'm so glad Grandma finally fed the dog. Okay, so just kidding. So it's finally Raji time. So I'm handing it off to you, Raji. Tell us about mentoring.
Sure. One of the objectives when we launched IT Circle was career coaching to the next gen women leaders. So WAMSA was one of one such program. It's WMSA Women Security Alliance. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to success of women in cybersecurity. WMSA provides mentoring opportunities, networking opportunities to the women who either wants to enter or who are trying to re-enter or advance their career in cybersecurity. So Kerry is our mentor relations director at WMSA. So she brought this good opportunity to OneMagnify, the mentorship program, a way to give back. So I signed up for that. And then in the slide, you can see my mentee. She is not from an IT background. She is from hospital management background, but she was very much interested in cybersecurity. So she was my mentee, and then we spoke, and then we decided. Her goal was to become an ethical hacker. So we put that as a final goal, and then we made it as a SMART goal. Did a backward planning, and then set some milestones, and then so now I work with her through emails and bi-weekly calls, discussing different courses, certifications that she has to take to achieve her final goal. So interestingly, when I work with her, she is reaching her goal. At the same time, I'm also learning lots of new things. So it becomes even more interesting. That's one. And the other one that WMSA offers is the CyberSeek interactive map and career pathway tool. Very interesting tool. It's kind of like a heat map tool, which tells the demand and supply of cybersecurity jobs in your region. So that's something like I'm yet to walk my mentee through that, but that is a great tool to see the opportunities that we have in cybersecurity area. Again, to the audience who is watching, there are lots of mentor opportunities in WMSA.org, or if you want to become a mentee, please head down to that website.
So I got a question, Raji. So she wants to go into ethical hacking. That sounds like an oxymoron. It sounds like jumbo shrimp, right? And so in my mind, like, what did you learn from her?
Right. So ethical hacking, when she said, yes, we do within OneMagnify, yes, we have this penetration testing, which our security department take care. So now when she said that, okay, what does it really involve? I know they do the kind of testing. My own applications, I've given it to security team. Yes, take this for penetration testing. Oh, here are the issues. Okay, let's go fix. But then it made me go through what is needed for that. So, and then, okay, it's a whole another world, because I'm primarily involved in managing development teams, whole another world. And then I'm now interested in cybersecurity because of my mentee.
Fascinating. So it's a win-win, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
I love that story. All right, so moving on to the next slide.
Yes, I have two more programs to talk about. I think Nicole hinted a little bit already on those two. Apprenti, it's a national program, and OneMagnify was the first company in Michigan to register for this program. The objective of Apprenti is to provide a proven, reliable pipeline for IT talent, including underrepresented groups. So this is basically a training program for future tech workers with emphasis on underrepresented groups, including women, minorities, and veterans. And OneMagnify was able to send a few employees to the training group, and then they came back as with more skills and happy employees. And then Kerry already mentioned about Tay, her niece, who is part of that program. And then another one is the Experience IT program. It was co-founded by OneMagnify with other tech giants in Detroit, where the employee volunteers participate in this entire program. They pick up the technology, they do the course curriculum, and then they also volunteer as mentors. They train them, they conduct interviews, and then eventually these companies hire the students. And so far, for the past few years, we are actually, these students, at least 90% of them were able to get placed in the companies in and around Detroit. And interestingly, in the past few years, the number of women that we have hired through Experience IT program is more than like 70-80% in OneMagnify.
So I gotta ask you, Raji, because you come from and you're an American, but you're also from India, so you've got a traditional Indian background. And you know, I've been in IT 30 years, and I've worked with some wonderful Indian women, and I when I'm hearing you say things like courageous and outspoken and leadership and all of these things, when I remember working with your demographic or your ethnicity, I thought of words like humility and polite and quiet and like, how do you bring yourself to become a strong woman leader?
Yes, you're right, Brian. The culture that we grew up, I've heard this proverb several times: empty vessels make the most noise. So humility and then being quiet was kind of like brought in with us. But the downside to that is like we forgot to speak up. The voices weren't heard. So a bit of undoing. The proverb is still true. It is a true meaning, but then it was kind of like, maybe it was absorbed differently or by mistake, saying that people don't have to speak up. No, it doesn't mean that. Speak up when you have to. Your voices have to be heard. So little undoing of that misunderstanding of the proverb. Yeah, it took some time, but I have been with OneMagnify 14 years. Definitely there is an impact from this wonderful company and the wonderful employees.
Right. I agree. And I've had the pleasure of interacting with you along with Carrie Nicole, and you're an exceptional IT leader with strong knowledge, and so I'm sure that adds to the legend of Raji. So
thank you.
Just curious to ask that. Carrie and Nicole, you want to add anything on the training program?
I guess I would just point out that my niece is, since we've all heard about her, she's the middle on the very right hand side. So it's nice to see her smiling face on this. And one other thing I think is very interesting is, we talk about advocacy and advocacy being important for creating an environment for women. And so since there are pictures here, I'll just tell you a story. A few weeks ago, her sister was here who just graduated from high school, and she was staying with us, and my niece was also out staying with her sister, and we were all sitting around the dining table having a nice meal, and my husband and I are asking her sister, what are you going to do? And she's telling us, and we were kind of like, oh God, not this again. But so we didn't say anything. We just were sitting there listening, and then all of a sudden my niece starts in you should consider a career in IT. And so I think this advocacy, it proliferates, right? It's if I advocate, then she's going to advocate. And here I was just super proud of Raji. She's talking about WAMSA. I've been talking about WAMSA. And so it's almost like if women, I think once you give them the voice and they start advocating, they start pulling each other up. And I've used the analogy before, but I think of it like the warped wall on Wipeout, right? Or American Ninja Warriors. It's that wall that's kind of curved. And, in a real world, if you're running a obstacle race, you can't get on that by yourself unless you're a 6'5", super, muscular dude who can pull yourself up, because it's 7 foot tall and you're not even going to make it. But the real goal of that is to, once somebody gets up, so you're going to find that dude and he's going to get up. The goal is for him to turn around and pull up 3 more people, and then those people pull up 3 more people. And I think of our careers and building an organization like this as advocacy. We're going to continue to pull people up, and we've seen great results from it. And I would say that creating these advocacy groups is important.
Agree. I want to. So I'm looking at these pictures and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so not only are they women, but they're minorities, they're veterans, it's a diverse group. And that each one of them has a story about how they had to overcome and break through their stereotype or what they envisioned the IT industry or the IT world to be. And they had to get through that in order to get to the other side to start building this career. I mean, Nicole, do you have a story on this? Because I'd love to know how you did it.
Yeah, so my story is very unconventional path to IT. And everyone, again, I mentioned this before. If my mom ends up watching this, she's probably holding up her coffee cup and going, I told you so. Because both of my parents are in IT, and they have been since I can remember. And I, for the longest time, was like, nope, not going to be me. I won't be sitting behind a desk. I'm going to be outside. I'm going to be wandering around, talking to people, being happy. Like, I was just like, I'm not doing that. Nope. And I pretty much did everything in my power to avoid this path. So I went to college and I got a journalism degree. I studied advertising. I did leadership. I worked in PR. All my internships were about marketing. I took jobs out of college. I did field marketing, research marketing. And then when we moved back to Michigan from Arizona, I came across my company currently, which used to be called Marketing Associates. And I was like, yep, marketing company, here I come. And I got my foot in the door through the customer service, that department. And I knew that my goal was going to be, I want to be in the creative department. I want to like, let me fly. Like, I want to write stuff. And so
Yeah.
I was going to do that. So I ended up moving up to the client services department, being a project manager to start with. And that was fine. I wasn't like super in love with anything. It was just kind of like, okay, I can do this. And then along came Carrie, who was introduced into my life. And I got asked to help out on a project. And they said it might have a little more technical feel to it, but we just need help organizing. We need some help with communication. And they're like, take a stab at it, just temporarily help out. Well, I ended up being on that project for 7 years.
Wow.
And I did have to work more with the IT and infrastructure department. I ended up doing a role where it was kind of, okay, just listen to what they do, see if you can help in any way. So I was kind of like following Carrie around, learning about the different teams that were involved. And through that, I was able to get a closer look at, working with the system admin team, working with the network team, the DBAs, talking to the QA department, the developers. And doing that, I was able to get more of a well-rounded view of how they all work together to create the products and whole picture for our clients. And in that moment, I realized my stereotype from high school or whatever grade it was of IT people being in the dark behind a computer screen with big gulps and pizza was not true. And it allowed me to really engage and interact with all these different people that I probably never would have touched if I was like, I'm only doing this and you can't force me or make me. I really learned a lot, and I was able to kind of take what I'm good at and take those things, which is writing, communication, and look at what the teams, like where they have a gap, what's not working. How can I use what I'm good at to fix this? So I built a couple tools and processes around builds that allowed our teams to work more cohesively. We had more successful builds. We didn't have all the problems going when some things were missed or miscommunicated. It just really helped all the teams work better together. And then I found like, hey, I'm useful here. They like me. I can do this. So from that moment, I was asked by our CIO, I was like, you want to be in IT? And I was like, well, why the heck not? So here I am as a host engagement manager.
Brilliant. I love that. So wait, it sounded like once you were able to break through your own myths of what you thought IT would be, you actually took the skills and knowledge and advertising and project management and writing, and you were able to apply that within IT. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. And that's the biggest thing that I think from my perspective, when there's stereotypes about this whole career path, any different job, I've learned that you don't ever in IT, and I'm sure everyone watching probably feels the same way, you never know it all. There's never a point where you're like,
yeah, of course.
I've maxed out, I'm done, I know everything. There's so many different facets, and that's constantly growing. There's new need for different positions, and those positions are popping up, maybe never heard of before in some of the different companies, and they're asking for people. And you might not have a ton of technical background or knowledge, but especially within our company, the great thing is they allow you to take that leap and support you in your training to figure it out. They took a risk on me, throwing me at Carrie. And luckily, Carrie loves me and is a beautiful person. And she was like, I'll teach you. I'll show you. You don't know how many pictures she had to draw for me with analogies for builds, devs, servers, infrastructure. So that's the great thing about our company at OneMagnify. We really, and I'm sure there's a ton of other companies that really would give that opportunity with this crazy growing market. So anyone that might be on the edge should really don't count it out because of something you think or you've heard or the old stereotypes from high school like me. Don't be stubborn and German like me. Take the easy path and just dive right in, you know?
I love that. And you know, like I've heard wonderful stories about Carrie taking a mentee and teaching them the ropes and helping them. And I know why she does it. She does that to teach you, Nicole and Raji, to teach the next generation, which you already are now doing with your generations, and then just keep passing it forward, you know, and breaking this whole diversity and everything that, you know, I mean, I just love to hear that. That's a great story. All right, we're shifting to these. We're taking it home now, right? Whose slide is this?
This will be Raji.
Yeah, this is mine. Yeah,
Okay.
probably like mine and Nicole together because so with these programs, what we observed was women were making movements within our company itself. So I have to call out some of the examples. One of our human resources employee, she wanted to jump into IT. She took the experience IT program and now she's working in my department as a developer. And one of our coworker, as a program manager and working in military, she was passionate about security and now she's in a security team. And then we also have one customer service person who was interested in QA, and then she joined QA department and now she's leading the QA department. And we already heard story about our journalist, our women identity, Nicole. So we are breaking down that stereotypes, and then I feel that women are feeling confident in moving around, taking that step, and then so not hesitating because they have to be overqualified to apply for a position.
I feel like the message here is it's really easier than you think. You just have to take that initial step and trust yourself, right?
That's
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's true.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. And the next slide, I think this is Carrie.
Yep. So we're going to continue the movement. And part of the reason we wanted to present this is because we wanted to encourage other organizations to create these advocacy groups. Because what you find is that you may have leaders that are sitting there in your organization that may not have, you know, the confidence to speak up. And so sometimes you have to help people, especially people from diverse backgrounds. You have to help them. You have to advocate for them. You have to sponsor them. You have to create these type of advocacy groups where they can actually flourish and come out of their shells and become great leaders. And our goals were to increase the number of women in leadership positions, which is starting to happen. We're already starting to see this. I can't really talk about it yet, but it's happening. And so it is a reality. And then we wanted to continue, 40% is great. And I know this last year was hard and a lot of companies lost women, and we kind of maintained, with that ratio, but our goal is to increase. We want to be 50-50. And then we want to make sure that we're retaining women, which I already talked about. We definitely did that during the pandemic, being able to be flexible and understanding that they bring such value. And, I think that allowed some women, especially at the very beginning of the pandemic when, the kids in Michigan are, and we have companies all across the world. I could tell you it happened in most places, or we have company locations across the world. The kids were home. Working mothers became working and full-time mothers. There's no school, there's no daycare. And so that was very hard. I mean, being a working mother, I don't know, right? I have dogs, and I have a niece that was already pretty much grown when I got her. And so, but I can tell you just from looking at what Nicole and Raji go through, it is already hard work. And so the fact that basically
Yes.
like 2 full-time jobs, the fact that we didn't lose anybody, I thought that was really awesome. And then, advocacy, like I said earlier, advocacy begets advocacy. And I think we need to lead by example and make sure that we're offering training. And then one last thing I want to put out before I finish, and I'm sure Brian has questions, but is that OneMagnify, our HR person, is going to be super happy. We are hiring. We are a great place for women. We are hiring, and we have a lot of positions. So you go to onemagnify.com/careers, and I'm sure you will find something wonderful. And if you need some, mentoring, or if you need somebody like help you, feel free to reach out. So I am very serious about this, and I know Nicole and Raji are as well. We want to increase the number of women in IT and give people hope that there are great careers for them.
So that's great. I do know we're almost coming up on time, so I want to wrap up and summarize. But let's say there's somebody out there who would love to kind of start this initiative in their company, and they wanted to reach out to you three and ask your advice on something. Are you available? And if so, where is the best place to reach you? Is it via email or Twitter or what? LinkedIn?
I would say LinkedIn for me.
Okay. Nicole?
LinkedIn for me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think I find LinkedIn to be great. I mean, people just randomly ask questions because you've been doing it. You've been doing it, and now this is VMware. This is Spring One. Y'all are the experts. That's why we selected you. So you know exactly what you're talking about, and you've shown the results, which are huge. So with that, last final words. I'll start with Carrie and work my way down. Summary, last minute advice.
So my final words are: if you're going to create products that are award-winning, that capture the market, you have to have a diverse team, because if your
Yes.
demographics of your team do not match the demographics of the general public and your users, your products will fail. And so advocacy for women and advocacy for underrepresented minorities are important, and our organizations should not just give lip service to having commitment to diversity. They should actually have a commitment to diversity.
Well said. Well spoken. Nicole?
Mine's going to be more focused on, if you aren't in IT and you want to take that jump, even if you've been in whatever position you've been in for numerous years, just take the leap. There are endless amount of jobs and opportunities for men and women. Doesn't know that this applies to everyone willing to take a peek at IT. Just dive right in, take that leap, take that risk. And I guarantee you'll probably like the return on investment there. So
good advice. Raji?
Yeah, I would just add on to what Nicole said. If you are interested in IT, just go for it. There are numerous materials out there in the internet. You can train yourself. There are tons of certifications available. Just go for it. But one comment I want to make about women in IT is I just started reading a book called Recoding Gender by Janet Abbott, where she was saying that during Second World War, digital computing was predominantly handled by women because men were at war. So that workforce kind of went on a downward trend in 1990s, 2000s. Just, we have to get it back. We have to get it back to that 50%. So women out there, just IT is easy. There are resources out there. Just jump in if you are interested.
Great advice. Thank you all. And so I wanted just to take a moment and share that each of these wonderful speakers are members of the VMware Tanzu Vanguard community. And the Vanguards are a select group of enterprise customer super users like themselves. They are gifted, wonderful speakers, and also highly knowledgeable in many of Tanzu's products. And so if you're a customer out there that is interested in the Vanguards, would like to learn more, just feel free to reach out to us. You can Google search Tanzu Vanguards and it'll pop right up. I want to thank you all for taking the time today. I know doing this live was a little bit scary, and I thought you all did great, especially the younger newbies. Carrie's a veteran. I knew she would like hit a grand slam home run, but Nicole and Raji, fantastic jobs.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is a wonderful experience for me, and I feel real lucky to have a chance to moderate this. I know that once this wraps up, we're gonna go on to another room and talk about more, but I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Carrie, Nicole, and Raja Lakshmi. I just wanted to share that, define your superpower. That is something that I am taking away from this session. It really impacted me. And I can see how it would be really helpful to have trusted colleagues highlight those superpowers and those positive attributes. So I am personally committed to sharing specific and positive attributes with colleagues on a regular basis. That's something I'm taking away from today, and I can imagine that it's easy to do. Wrapping up a meeting and sending a quick Slack to someone to say specifically something that they said or did in a meeting that was positive and noteworthy. So thank you for that inspiration. And with that, we'll send you all over to the main stage for our keynote session this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.